Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the retirement of Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer and what kind of ramifications this is going to have on politics really for the next year leading up into the midterms, and how a potential replacement may be picked and what hurdles that nominee might face in the 50-50 Senate that we have in the US today, given that there is some division in the Democratic caucus, particularly Senators Manchin and Sinema, who have, many times disagreed with Biden's more progressive agenda, or the more progressive elements of Biden's political agenda. So, we're going to talk about that throughout this video, and we're going to talk about really what impact this is going to have going into the fall. Actually, not even next year, the fall. So Stephen Breyer was one of the liberals on the Supreme Court. The current makeup of the Supreme Court, as of right now, is we have 6 conservative-leaning justices. Technically, you have one sort of centrist justice in John Roberts. So you really have 5 conservatives, 1 centrist, and then you have 3 liberal-leaning justices. Stephen Breyer was one of them, Sonia Sotomayor, and Justice Kagan as well. Those 3 are the liberals on the Supreme Court. What I think is interesting when you look at their confirmation votes is they were often confirmed by pretty wide margins. I think the conservative with the highest confirmation margin is Alito. So a lot of the conservative picks were a lot more contentious for the Senate at the time. You see 52-48, 58-42, whereas the Democratic members of the Supreme Court all have, super majorities or over super majority support by the Senate. So the balance of the Supreme Court isn't really going to change based on this retirement. Obviously, Stephen Breyer has come out and said that this was not a political move, that, this retirement isn't political, but, everything really is about politics these days. It definitely was a political move because he's conscious of the fact that, with a Democratic administration now, it is sort of likely at this point that a Republican is probably going to succeed Biden in 2024. At least that's the way it looks like with approval ratings and the direction of the country. So he's figuring he's going to step down now rather than later on during a Republican's term, where a Republican president and most likely a Republican Senate are going to pick his replacement. So he's choosing to do this now while the Democrats have marginal control of the Senate. And, when I say marginal, it really is a difficult coalition because, Democrats haven't been able to get a whole lot passed through the Senate, mainly because of the objection of more moderate senators like Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. So that really is the main roadblock for any Biden nominee, is that, it could be possible that you have 2 of the senators siding with Republicans and voting down certain nominees. So, Biden is probably going to have meetings with Manchin and Sinema to really talk about what they approve of in a Supreme Court justice. But really, we're probably still going to get somebody who is, roughly center-left probably. I don't think you're going to see a sort of John Roberts, a moderate Republican nominee come out of this. Biden has said that he wants to nominate a black woman to the Supreme Court. That's something he said, I believe, back in 2019 when he ran. So, of course, there's some people speculating that Kamala Harris might be, one of the potential picks, although I think that's very unlikely. Some people have pointed to, there's a D.C. Circuit judge, there's a California Supreme Court judge. I'm not really going to go into all the potential picks for the Supreme Court because, honestly, I don't really know much about them. And, I don't really cover the Supreme Court that much because I mostly, focus on election predictions and current politics. But, I thought I would cover this today because it is pretty relevant, because this is a, pretty big shift. I mean, there's only 9 justices on the Supreme Court. Many of them serve a decently long time. We have justices on here for 30 years, 27 years, 11 years. So, a lot of these justices are going to be here for decades and decades. So, we get used to seeing them around. Stephen Breyer was appointed by Bill Clinton, or nominated by Bill Clinton, and his confirmation vote was the, most lopsided of all of them. He passed 87-9. So there was basically almost no objections to Breyer's nomination to the Supreme Court. But, I think the most interesting thing out of all of this is how the Senate vote is going to break down. Whether we're going to have Republican senators like Susan Collins or Lisa Murkowski, or, even Mitt Romney or something like that. If we have Republicans break party ranks to vote for a Biden Supreme Court nominee, now it's very likely that whoever gets nominated during the confirmation hearings, they're probably going to hide the ball, which is to say that they're going to probably hide their true positions on issues. A lot of times, if you've watched the Amy Coney Barrett hearings or Brett Kavanaugh or the most recent Supreme Court hearings, they're usually very vague in their answers, usually talk about, they support the Constitution and just very vague stuff that really doesn't tell us anything about how they would really rule on certain cases on the bench. So I expect that to be the same with whatever justice is put forth before the Senate. But, depending on their ideology, you could see some breakaways with, again, Manchin and Sinema, which would fail any Biden confirmation vote. He needs the entire Democratic caucus in order to get a nominee passed. And, of course, he needs Kamala Harris to break the tie if all Republicans vote against the nominee. But obviously, it's way too premature to say who this nominee is going to be, what their ideology is. We only have a list of around 6 potential candidates or so that Biden's actually going to pick. But again, as I reiterate before, it's not really going to change the makeup of the Supreme Court. At the end of the day, there's still going to be a 6-3 conservative court. Conservatives are likely to have the majority on the Supreme Court, probably into the next decade at least, especially if we have more justices retire from the Supreme Court. Again, Sotomayor and Kagan are not really old. They're very unlikely to, retire or, any other reason why they'd have to step down. So the makeup of the court is likely to stay the same for the foreseeable future, even with the Breyer replacement. Now, I do wonder if, maybe Republicans are going to pull a sort of what they did in 2016 with Merrick Garland, where they might try to postpone the hearings until after the midterm elections. There might be talk of that. I don't really think that's going to happen. It could. Obviously, I think there's going to be, a pretty bitter battle in terms of the confirmation hearings, given how the Biden administration has gone thus far and how the Republican Congress and the Biden administration don't really seem to find much common ground. So I think the Supreme Court confirmation as well is going to be pretty contentious. I don't know if it's going to get as much media coverage as, Amy Coney Barrett or Brett Kavanaugh, because, again, this is a Democrat being confirmed, so you're probably not going to have as much of a media frenzy on this side. But, again, it is pretty significant because he's been on the court for, over 20 years, 27 years, nearly 3 decades on the Supreme Court. And again, SCOTUS is really a mixed bag because not every justice votes by, ideology, as we've seen with some recent rulings by the Supreme Court, especially with John Roberts, but even Brett Kavanaugh, so not every justice votes strictly by ideology. You have some people voting, against what we typically would describe as their mold or ideology or something like that. So something interesting about the Supreme Court hearings as well is they can't be filibustered. This was a rule actually changed by Harry Reid during the Obama administration. Before that, the Senate could actually filibuster a nominee for the Supreme Court, which would actually prevent the nomination of that person until, the president picks somebody else, because we haven't seen a Senate with a supermajority since, after the 2008 elections, when the Democrats, I believe, had 60 senators for a very brief period of time, and then we had that special election in Massachusetts, went down to 59. So getting a supermajority in the Senate is near impossible in today's political climate, especially given the political geography. Again, you have so many solid red states that are probably never going to elect a Democratic senator, all down the plains here, or, the South, etc. So it's very, very unlikely that you're going to see a supermajority anytime soon. But, thanks to Harry Reid, these nominees can't be filibustered. So Biden will definitely probably get somebody on the court within next year, I would guess. In 2013 or 2015, it was somewhere around there. The filibuster for this was taken away. Now, it's interesting we bring up the filibuster because that was something I didn't really get to talk about, but of course we had the filibuster rules change that the Democrats tried to push, which was an effort to basically say that we need to go back to a talking filibuster, which is basically would have made it a lot easier for Democrats to pass legislation by a simple majority vote, and that, those efforts were blocked by the entire Republican caucus and Sinema and Manchin as well. So it is interesting that this rule change will benefit Democrats, as it did when they changed the rules last time, because they'll actually be able to get a nominee through because, had the filibuster actually been in place for Supreme Court nominees, Biden might not be able to get anybody in the court within the next year, because it is likely that Republicans are going to take the Senate this fall as it stands right now, and we'll go more into, you can watch my Senate prediction, which is the last video I uploaded. It's very likely that Republicans are going to take back the Senate. So, Democrats are really rushing to try and get this seat filled as quickly as they can. And I think that's why Breyer stepped down when he did, to give, his party enough time to replace him with a like-minded individual before the midterms actually happen. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching this video. Please leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification so you don't miss any other videos I put out. As always, again, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.